You ever notice how the busiest people always seem the most calm? They're not rushing, not checking their phone every 5 seconds, not replying LOL to group chats at 2 a.m. They've mastered something that would make even Marcus Aurelius nod in approval. They've learned to be unavailable. In a world that expects you to be constantly reachable, always online, and eternally responsive, being unavailable isn't rude. It's powerful. It's stoic. And ironically, it's how you finally get your life back. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to support our journey. It helps a lot, and make sure to stay till the end. It gets deeper than you think. Number 1, the myth of constant availability. We live in an age where availability is confused with importance. If you're not replying instantly, people think you're lazy or ignoring them. But here's a Stoic twist. Epictetus never had WhatsApp, and he still managed to change the world. Being constantly available doesn't mean you're productive. It often means you're distracted. Availability has become a trap disguised as connection. The more you say yes to every message, every favor, every meeting that should have been an email, the more you're saying no to your own clarity. Stoicism teaches us that internal peace is bought with boundaries and silence. The world doesn't burn down because you didn't reply in 2 minutes. Let people wait. Let that email sit for a bit. When you stop operating like a 24/7 convenience store, people actually start respecting your time more. And so do you. Besides, isn't it funny how the people who text urgent often just want to know your Netflix recommendations? You're not ignoring them. You're protecting your energy. And that's not selfish. That's wise. Number 2, the power of selective presence. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And half the time, the imagined guilt of not being available is worse than the actual consequences. You're not obligated to show up for everything and everyone, only what aligns with your values. When you become selectively present, something amazing happens. The noise fades. You stop getting invited to every petty drama or irrelevant group chat. You're no longer the person people vent to when they should be seeing a therapist. You become a person of intention, not interruption. And guess what? The fewer people who have instant access to you, the more power your presence holds when you do show up. You're not being missed because you're silent. You're being respected because you're rare. Even diamonds don't answer calls after 9 p.m. Think of it this way. Would you rather be milk, cheap and always available, or wine, aged, rare, and appreciated slowly? The answer is obvious unless you're lactose intolerant. Number 3, mental clarity through distance. Being unavailable creates space, and space is where clarity breathes. Ever notice your best ideas come in the shower, on a walk, or during those moments when you're not doom scrolling TikTok? That's your brain thanking you for being unreachable. Stoics weren't just about sitting in silence for aesthetics. They knew silence was strategic. When you pull back from the constant influx of stimulation, you regain the ability to think, not just react. You move from passive consumption to active reflection. Being unavailable is like putting your mind on airplane mode. No turbulence, no distractions, just altitude. You see your problems from a higher view. You realize what matters, what doesn't, and what can go straight to spam. And don't worry, the world will go on without your input for a few hours. If you're always reacting, you're never creating. And if you're never creating, you're just surviving, not living. Number 4, setting boundaries like a Stoic. Marcus Aurelius wasn't checking his scroll feed before meditating. He knew the power of intentional withdrawal. You can still be kind without being constantly available. You're not a jerk. You're just enforcing boundaries, which, by the way, is adulting 101. The truth is, people will treat your time the way you treat it. If you're always on call, always saying, "Sure, I can do that," you're training others to believe your schedule is theirs. Stoicism reminds us that we control our reactions, and sometimes that means not reacting at all. Start small. Turn off notifications. Let calls go to voicemail. Take your mornings back. You don't need a monastery to practice Stoicism. Just a little courage to say not right now. Bonus tip, put your phone on Do Not Disturb and your soul on finally some peace. Ironically, the moment you become less accessible, your life becomes more enjoyable. It's not about isolation, it's about intention. You're not hiding from the world, you're filtering it. Number 5, watch how your life changes. When you learn to be unavailable, everything changes, and not in a subtle way. Your productivity shoots up because you're no longer context switching 32 times an hour. Your relationships deepen because you're no longer spread thin. Your mental health? Well, it starts to feel like a well-fed plant in sunlight. You also become more confident. Why? Because you're finally valuing your time the way successful people do. People sense when you're centered, not scattered. And those who mind your boundaries are the ones worth keeping around. The more unavailable you are to nonsense, the more available you become to your goals, your purpose, and your peace. That's not just Stoicism, that's strategy. So be bold, be rare, be unavailable, and watch how the world starts working in your favor instead of against your focus. It's not rude, it's revolutionary. Number 6, detachment from digital validation. One of the silent addictions of our time is the need to be seen, to be acknowledged instantly. But Stoicism reminds us that self-worth is internal, not based on how many likes you get in the first 10 minutes of posting a story. Being unavailable isn't just about physical absence. It's about detaching from the craving for constant validation. You don't need to respond just to prove you're paying attention. You don't need to comment, even an emoji, just to stay in someone's algorithmic favor. Your attention is not a currency to be spent on every trend or notification. It's a sacred resource, like gold. If gold could also ruin your sleep schedule, the less you chase responses, the more peace you invite. You stop refreshing your DMs like it's the stock market. You stop wondering why someone left you on scene. Newsflash, it doesn't matter. Being unavailable from that mental loop is freedom. And when you rise above the noise of digital urgency, you start experiencing life more fully, not as a performer, but as a participant. You live for your inner applause, not audience reactions. Number 7, unavailability creates mystery and magnetism. There's a strange power in disappearing for a bit. Suddenly, people notice your absence. You're no longer just there, you're remembered. Stoics didn't overshare. They let their presence speak and their absence echo. In a world where oversharing is the norm, mystery becomes magnetic. When you're not constantly explaining yourself or documenting your breakfast, people wonder what you're up to. And that curiosity creates gravity, emotional gravity. You become intriguing, not just available. Let's face it, there's nothing attractive about someone who's available 24/7. That's not presence. That's exhaustion. Being unavailable tells the world, I have things to do, peace to protect, and a life to live. And oddly enough, that energy draws people in. Want to stand out? Go quiet. Want to be unforgettable? Be scarce. Your silence makes people listen harder. Your space makes your return more meaningful. It's not ghosting, it's strategic mystique. Number 8, productivity through prioritization. One of the best parts of being unavailable is discovering how much more you can get done. When you stop being reactive, you start being proactive. You control your schedule instead of being dragged around by it like a cat on a leash. Stoicism encourages us to focus on what we can control. And you know what you can control? Your calendar, your screen time, your to-do list. Saying no to distractions means saying yes to progress. Suddenly, you're not just busy, you're effective. People think multitasking is impressive, but in reality, it's just a fast track to mediocrity. Being unavailable gives you the space to go deep on what matters instead of skimming 20 surface-level tasks that lead nowhere. The productivity you gain from unavailability isn't just about time, it's about attention. That focused, deep work energy builds things. It's how books get written, businesses grow, and peaceful minds are formed. Number 9, training others to respect your time. Here's a wild truth. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. If you're always available, you train others to expect you to drop everything at a moment's notice. And eventually, they stop valuing your time altogether. Setting boundaries isn't about being mean. It's about being clear. You can be polite and unavailable. You can say, "I'll get back to you tomorrow," without sounding like a villain. And over time, people will start respecting that. Why? Because consistency builds credibility. When you become unavailable on purpose, you shift the power dynamic. You're no longer at everyone's beck and call. You're in command of your space. That authority isn't aggressive. It's calm. It's quietly powerful, stoic even. Eventually, the people who truly value you will adjust. They'll understand that your time isn't cheap, and your availability is earned, not assumed. And those who don't, well, they probably weren't worth the paying anyway. Number 10, the long-term rewards of withdrawal. Being unavailable isn't a phase. It's a lifestyle shift, one that pays compound interest. You'll feel awkward at first, maybe even guilty, but like cold showers and budgeting, it pays off in ways you can't imagine. With time, you'll notice fewer unnecessary commitments on your calendar, more peace between your thoughts, deeper conversations replacing shallow chatter. You'll become the kind of person who isn't overwhelmed by life because you've chosen what enters your space. Stoicism teaches us to subtract what doesn't serve us. That includes noise, people, obligations, and even parts of our old identity. When you're unavailable to everything unworthy, you're free to build a life that's truly yours. So don't just be unavailable today. Make it a standard, a filter, a sacred rule. And one day, you'll look around and realize you didn't miss out on anything. You finally made room for everything that matters. Thanks for watching till the end. If this gave you some perspective, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who's drowning in notifications right now. And remember, your peace begins where their access ends.